Calling all working moms out there, do you feel stretched too thin? Amen to that one. If you answered yes to that question, listen up, because Jessica Turner has some tips for us today on how we can work smarter and lose that mom guilt we all feel to do it all and be it all. Welcome, Jessica.
Thanks so much for having me.
You start off the book talking about the pumpkin patch break. I call it the pumpkin patch breakdown.
Yeah, that's a good word.
Yeah. Take us back to that day.
You know, life had been really busy in October. October is just a busy month for our family, and we had not been to the pumpkin patch. And the pumpkin patch is like one of those things I want to do. And my son had soccer, and there was a lot going on, and I just started crying because I just wanted to go to the pumpkin patch. And for me, that experience felt like I was being a good fall mom.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It was just everything kind of coming to a head, and it really was. It seems silly now to think about it, but just a breakdown of how I was feeling emotionally and really feeling stretched too thin during that season.
And just wanting to do everything, wanting to accomplish so many things on your list, including the pumpkin patch.
Right.
Now, we
Right.
all have the pumpkin patch in our own lives. For me, it was the water park this past weekend and doing that. Do we put that pressure on ourselves?
I think
Are we
we
to
do.
be blamed?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
You know, I think so often we think about what we should be doing based on what we're seeing on social media and what we see other families doing. And just because that's good for that family that weekend or in that season doesn't mean it's the right thing for you to do right now.
Yeah.
And I think that can be hard. I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves based on the highlight reels we're seeing from other people's lives instead of what really makes sense for our own families.
And also the guilt of being a working mom. And I love what you say. Look at the fact that you're working as a blessing to your family.
Yeah, I don't think that we should feel guilty for working.
Yeah.
It is what the majority of moms today do, is work, is bring in an income for their families. It's necessary. And so I don't think it's something that we should feel guilty of. I think that we should feel proud that we're contributing to our families in that way, that we're using our giftings and talents that way. I know for me, I'm a better mom when I'm away from my kids for a few hours every day and doing something that really lights me up, that I'm not able to use those same giftings at home. And so I don't think that's something that we should feel guilty for. I think it's something that we should be proud of about our strength and our ability to contribute to our families in that way.
So is there balance? Is there a way that we can balance life?
I don't think balance is really a thing. Mark Kelly writes in his book that really we should look at life as having satisfaction instead of balance. And that has been a really good word for me to think about. Am I satisfied in my work, in how I'm contributing to my family, in our family life, in my marriage, and how I'm taking care of myself? And if I'm satisfied in all of those things, even if those things time-wise might be not balanced, I think that's good. Now, if we're feeling unsatisfied in one of those areas, whether it's that we're not satisfied in our work, or we're really feeling overwhelmed at home, or we're feeling like we're not getting enough time with our kids, or our marriage has kind of been on autopilot, well, then that's time for us to say, you know what, maybe we should be doing something different.
And so listening to ourselves, which is something that can be challenging when you're going full steam, when you feel like you're stretched too thin. What I'm hearing you say is we need to listen to ourselves more.
We do need to listen to ourselves. And I think we also need to listen to people that are in our lives that can maybe speak into that when we can't see that for ourselves. There's a story I tell in the book about my daughter at the end of her kindergarten year. I don't know if you remember the story. She brought home a worksheet of her 4 favorite memories from the year, and one of them was Daddy. And my husband works from home, and so he's able to go to lots of things, and he had been at something very recently. But when I saw Daddy in that grid, I just lost it, and I started crying that she's gonna remember you at home and you at school, and she's gonna remember me in an office. And that was really painful for me in that moment. And my husband had to speak into my life and say, you are a great mom. She is not gonna remember her life as you not being present. But I needed somebody else to do that because I couldn't speak that truth to myself in that moment.
I think also exactly what you said about your husband. I think husbands need to listen to this interview because they need to know how to speak and encourage their wives. Because through the whole book, what I also saw was an encouraging husband that was helping you to embrace this other area of your life that you really wanted to pursue. And that takes some, I'm going to use the word balance in your family life to say, yeah, I support you just like I support you. Supporting each spouse in the endeavors that they go into.
Yeah, absolutely. I am really fortunate to be married to somebody who is a believer in my dreams and a champion of the work that I'm doing, and that does make a difference. And I think that it makes a difference in a lot of different areas, but it also means that sometimes we both have to say no to things, you know, and being okay with that. And I think it's really good for our kids to see our spouses encouraging one another in the work that they're doing and celebrating that work, whatever that work is. Even if that work enables you to be able to go to the beach, right? And saying like, look at this great work that mommy's doing or that daddy's doing, and that this enables us to do X, Y, Z. And I think that's important for our kids as well.
You also talk about it being okay to miss a soccer game.
Yeah.
It's okay to miss things. There are going to be many more. And if it means that you have to do something else, it's okay to take that guilt off of you.
Right. I think we put a lot of unnecessary pressure on ourselves to do everything. And we just don't have to do everything. You know, my sister played volleyball, and I promise you that she doesn't remember what game my mom was at and what game she wasn't. She doesn't remember. Like, but what she remembers is a mom who was present, right? And I think that's true for whatever the thing is that your kid is doing, that you don't necessarily have to be at everything to be a good mom.
And you talk about core values, focusing on what our core values are. And as long as we have that in focus, then everything else will come in line, because we know at the end of the day, our core value might be having dinner on the table, making sure our kids are healthy, whatever that is, focusing in on that.
Yeah, and you know what? Your core values are going to be different for every person. And so taking time to sit as a family and talk about what are the things that really matter to us, what is the story that we want to have for our family, and zeroing in on that is really powerful. And I think something that a lot of us don't make the time to do, but it really is transformative when you do it.
I love your points about cleaning the house, because I feel like that is something.
Or my lack of points of cleaning the house.
Well, and just, you know, there are ways that we can actually look at cleaning the house, and also realize, I love what you said too about appreciating the house for what it has done for our family. And that made me think about, okay, you know, when I see the dust balls around or things like that, to not focus in on those things, but realize that I can do it bite size. Because, you know, as someone who is very stretched too thin, you can look at these books and think, okay, this is just another list of things that I have to do. But you're trying to focus in on, how can we bite size this? How can we take this in just a piecemeal kind of process, so that we are not overwhelmed by the things at home as well?
Right. Home management was a huge one. I surveyed 2,000 working moms and said, what are your biggest pain points? And managing the home was like the #1 thing for all of us. So we're all feeling stretched too thin in this area. And I think at the end of the day, like, my kids are going to remember that we sat and read stories or that we had a game night way more than they're going to remember if the mantle was dusty or not. And so that's where I'm going to put my time. I'm going to put my time in the people and the relationships and what's happening within the house more than how the house looks. Now, certainly I don't want to be in squalor, although sometimes it does feel that way, right? But, you know, I just think that at the end of our lives, we're going to care about the relationships that we poured into, not how clean our house was, not how much time we spent on social media. So put your time into the things that really matter. Something that's interesting to me as I talk with women all across North America is how many of them say, well, you know what, my husband, that's something that's really important to him. And so I feel like I have to do that because it's important to him. And I say, sister, you need to have a conversation with your husband then, because that is not the most important thing. And if it is, then, okay, what are the things that really matter? Can he pitch in a little bit more? Can we maybe make some changes to our budget so that you could get a little bit of help? Because particularly for women who are working outside the home 40 hours a week, there's just not enough time to do all of those things extremely well.
And you also talk the importance of marriage, of making sure that you have that time with your spouse and you're spending quality time together.
That's right, because hopefully our children are going to leave someday, right? Like, that this isn't going to be something that we are going to have forever. Our little kids running around in Cheerios on the floor. And so the relationship that you have left is the one with your spouse. So don't just have that on autopilot for years, for decades. Really make time for one another. It's good for our kids to see us go out and be investing in our relationship with our spouse, in our relationship with friends. Your kids are going to be okay if you're not home with them 24/7.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Okay, the name of the book is Stretched Too Thin. Do you feel that way today? How working moms can lose the guilt, work smarter, and thrive. I would encourage you to call our prayer lines again today as well. If you feel that you are stretched too thin, and even the things that Jessica and I just talked about, maybe you just feel very overwhelmed and you just need some prayer to just urge you in the right direction, we have amazing prayer partners, amazing men and women who love God, love you, and want to encourage you today that you are not alone in this process. The number's at the bottom of your screen, 1-866-273-4444, or you can email prayer@crossroads.ca. We are here for you. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey, if you're impacted by the story shared today, all you have to do is hit our subscribe button, and you can stay up to date with all the life-changing stories shared right here on 100 Huntley Street.